All right, so Underworld, Rise of the Lycans. Now, I had said at the beginning of this that my memory was that this was my favorite of the five. And having rewatched it, and having rewatched the first two, I can't say that's true anymore. I actually prefer Evolution, and I might actually even honestly prefer the first one as well. So, but this is still really good. Like, this one I feel like it appeals to me a little bit more, and it's probably why I initially was so high on it, because this one's like medieval times, and so that makes it much more fantasy, almost like Lord of the Rings or something like that, which is, you know, this kind of stuff I absolutely love. So if I want to see vampires versus werewolves, I don't want to see guns. I don't want to see modern day cars and all that shit. I want to see them in castles. I want to see them, you know, in the 12th century, whatever. Like, that is awesome to me. And that's what we got going on here. So very, very excited to see that. So in this movie, we got the werewolves used as slaves, also used as guard dogs for them during the day. When they can't protect themselves, they have the wolves and they surround the building. Now, there are wolves that come from, I would assume that they come from William, but they are just cursed wolves. They're always wolves 100% of the time. Then Lucien comes around, and he's the first human, half werewolf. And so he is taken in and trained, and, you know, Victor wants to kill him, but just can't seem to pull it off. Although he then kills his daughter. It's like, you can't kill a baby, but you could kill your daughter. I mean, as horrible as this sounds, I could kill a baby over killing my daughter. No doubt about it. There's no doubt about it. Horrible. Hopefully I never have to come to that. But your kid, your own child, oh man. But this is like, Victor is a heartless motherfucker. Victor is, okay, I shouldn't say he's completely heartless, but damn near close. Because the death of his daughter, it does seem to weigh on him a decent amount. Like, he's in his room, he can barely handle that he's made this decision. And also, when he meets Celine, he can't kill her because she reminds him of his mistake. I always get those mixed up. Her thing. I fuck that up every single time I try to say that kind of stuff. Yes. She reminds him. Anyway, so he is not completely heartless, but he is a piece of shit. He's a piece of shit who kills his daughter. Now, the problem with prequels, the thing you have to overcome when making a prequel is, you know, your audience already knows the outcome of things. You know Lucien can't die. You know that Victor can't die. You know that Victor's, the dude who blackmails Sonia in this, you know, he can't die. You know that the big black dude who with the deep voice can't die. And you know that Sonia is burned in front of him as he's tied there by Victor's hand. Like, you know all these things are going to happen. And you know that's going to happen at the end of this movie, pretty much. And that's exactly what happens. And you know that's what starts the war. Like, you know everything that's going to happen. So you really just got to make the coolest film you can, even though there's going to be zero surprises to the audience. And with this movie, there are zero surprises. Like, there's nothing in this film that you wouldn't have expected from the story you've gotten so far. It's not one of those, like, you thought you knew the story, you knew nothing. It's nothing like that. It's like, you thought you knew the story, and you were exactly accurate. You knew it perfectly. This is exactly what you think it is, the end. And that's not a bad thing, because for me, continuity is king, and this movie fucking fits the continuity of the first two perfectly. Yes, Sonia looks a little different than the flashback in the end. That's not to be worried about. But the way that she's killed, Now, she's not screaming when she burns here, which is kind of annoying to me because her death's different a little bit, but her means of death is the same, and in his reaction is the same, and all that stuff. So I'm fine with it. It is what it is, but for the most part. Now, this movie's pretty political. There's a lot of political stuff in here, which is actually what hurt the original prequel of the Star Wars franchise, obviously, with The Phantom Menace. You know, it starts with Trade Federation talks and this and that, and there's kids in the audience like, politics? Ugh. Now, someone who's like super into Star Wars and super into the politics of Star Wars, I'm into it. Like, I like all that stuff. I like all the, all the inside talk, all of like what's happening behind the scenes with the chancellors and Naboo and the trade federations and the freaking viceroys and all that stuff. Like, the prequels are not very good. Let's not get that wrong here. But I do think there's a lot of interesting shit in there. And if you're really, really into the lore of Star Wars, then the politics side of it is very, very interesting to see how Senator Palpatine rose to become the Emperor. I think that's all super fascinating, cool stuff. But it does make for very boring cinema. Like, that's the kind of stuff that's better suited for novels. For geeks like me that want to read that kind of shit, and they like, wow, how did he overthrow, or how did he do this? That's kind of more inside bullshit for us. Which they do expand upon that in the books, but they really go all heavy into it in this. Now, in this movie, the politics play a pretty big role, but they don't overshadow the action. They don't overshadow the love story. They don't overshadow anything. So I don't think they're overused here. I think it makes sense, that this is Victor's reign at this time. This is his 100 years. And during this time, he's enslaved these wolves. And he has his daughter, Sonia, who he has on his council of 12. And she, of course, is having an affair with the animal. I'm not an animal. Which he actually says in this, except for he says, we are not animals, which I thought was kind of funny. But yeah, he wants her there for the meeting. She never is. She's always defiant. She's always going against what he wants. She's always like running out. And so she was just destined for trouble from the beginning here. And so yeah, he's kind of already at his wit's end with her, because he can never control her. He can never get her to do what he wants. And she realizes that this relationship with Lucien is going to end poorly. Now, I would have liked to have seen how their romance came to be. We see the look they give each other when they're kids, and that's about it. The next scene, they're banging. And of course, because he's a werewolf, they're doing it doggy style, which makes sense, right? But yeah, I would have liked to have seen that developed more, but it's just not. But I will say the love between them in this is much better represented in here than the one between Celine and Michael Corbin. 100%. Like, I bought this relationship way more, because there's much more of a focus on it in this movie. It's actually the focus of the film. Now, in the first Underworld, and even some of the second one, that's supposed to kind of be the focus. Like, Celine wants to protect Michael because she has a thing for him, whatever. But for some reason, it just doesn't come through. In this one, it very much comes through. It very much feels like the centerpiece of the story. Like, everything is branching off from their love story. Everything is connected to their love story. So I buy it 100%. And I just wish that we could have seen their relationship begin and flourish, and see like her kind of reject the notion. Now, that could have gotten too romantic drama-ish for fantasy fans, and they already know they get together, so maybe I'm way off base here, but just a scene, Just something. I guess we get it with them being kids and she looks at him and all this and that, but I don't know. Just one sequence where something happens and he like grabs her arm and she's like, "Don't touch me, animal." You know, and he's like, "I'll show you a fucking animal." And he just, "Nah." Okay, that seemed more like rape. Maybe I shouldn't write romantic sex scenes. Yeah, the CG in this is pretty rough. Not a huge fan of the CG, but the practicals are still great. The werewolves in this, when they're practical, still look awesome. And Lucien gives up his chance at freedom the first time by taking his collar off to go help her fight and save her from the wolves. And once he turns werewolf, they all kind of bow to him, and he realizes he has an army out there waiting for her. I also thought about the whole idea, and this is something I've always wondered with elves. So Sonia was a kid. We have a flashback where she's a child a couple times, and now she's a full-grown adult. They don't age. So when they're born, are they born human? And when they're born human, are they human until she turned what? How old is this woman in this movie? She looks 30. She looks late 20s, early 30s. So did he wait 30 years and then bite her? Is that how that is? Is it like a ritual on your 30th birthday? Or like when you're at your pristine, although you'll never know when you're really at your pristine. But typically that's going to happen somewhere in like 25 area. Although once you're a vampire, you have the agility, you have all the things. So I guess just whenever you want, you can look fucking 80, but you still have the agility of a vampire. So I guess it doesn't really matter. Maybe it's her decision. Like, all right, this is how I want to stay. As long as you're over 18 and you're an adult and you've developed fully, then it's your turn to be like, all right, now, time to bite me. I don't know how that all works. Yeah, this guy blackmails his seat on the council, which, as I said, that's the politics side of this, which, you know, I like seeing. They don't focus on it too much, so it doesn't really ever get boring to me. They take their slaves that they bring in and they turn them into wolves. I found it interesting that it seems like they were trying to be very cautious about them being slaves and being white. Like, they had the black guy from the first movie, so they were kind of like, all right, well, we'll bring him in as like a fan favorite kind of thing, but then like no one else can be black because they're slaves and that's too sensitive. So we're gonna make them all white guys. We'll have this one black guy, he's a slave, but everyone else has gotta be white. You know that was on purpose. I don't remember seeing anybody else that was any other race but white, or you know, some kind of white. And when they're trying to escape, one guy trips, and that basically costs so many people their lives. Clumsy motherfucker. You think that once you were a wolf, you'd have better footing, or pawing. And then they break away, and they can't chase him in the sunlight, but of course he says he's going to come back for them, which of course he does. And then he goes and he rallies the slaves after they're out and is like, we got to go back, I'll go get the wolves. And then he takes Narsil and he goes and he rallies up the okay, that was a Lord of the Rings reference for all of you who don't know what the fuck I'm talking about. But he goes into the den of wolves and brings them out with him, which is really cool. I love this whole idea of like man and wolf armies like marching on a vampire castle. It's so badass. Just say that out loud and you're like, dude, I want to see that. And it is. It's really cool. Then they march on the castle, and you get this big epic battle sequence where vampires are getting munched by werewolves, and werewolves are getting impaled right and left. Even when they're trying to escape, they're getting like you know, these big harpoon gun type things like shot right through their head, and they're just stuck. against the wall. I know those things have names. They're not catapults. What the hell can it? I know what those are called. They're like big fucking arrows. What do they call those damn things? Yeah, leave it in the comments. I probably won't remember before this video ends because I'm pretty much at the end. Okay, so he makes him watch Sonya's death, which is really fucked up, and it's so fucked up that he like wants to kill his daughter. Like, doesn't matter, you know, that's how it was gonna happen. But then he comes out, and why isn't Lucien wearing anything? Like, he's just chained up, and it's like, did you not expect him to change into a werewolf when you piss him off that much? Like, he turns into a werewolf and rips his chains out, and then Victor kind of looks back like, oh shit, he's loose. Oh shit, he's loose. Why wasn't his collar on him? That's what prevents him from going. If he tries to transform when that collar's on, it'll kill him. It'll slit his throat or cut his head off. So why wasn't that there? Like, and another thing, this is another stupid thing, but so he's really strong, as is the big black dude. I wish I would have looked up his name because I hate calling him the big black dude, but that's how everybody knows who I'm talking about. But that guy comes in, and he's just a man, but now he's a wolf, right? So he has wolf powers. So he's really strong, and he can jump off buildings or really high heights and land on the ground and run away. So he has a lot of extra strength, right? As would any of these other werewolf guys. And he comes up, and he just keeps ripping the doors right off their hinges to let them out of their prison cells. If he had the ability to do that, why didn't he break out of his prison cell as soon as he became a werewolf? Why don't all the guys in there that are werewolves rip the doors right off the hinges? If they have that strength to do that, why not? And if you have the strength to do that, you have the strength to rip that collar right off of your neck. So that kind of stuff was really, really dumb to me. I was just like, okay, like, I get what you're going for, but then don't make it that a guy can rip the doors off the fucking hinges of this prison cell. It made no sense to me at all. And I can't think of a good reason for why that would be okay, knowing what we know. Victor is killed at the end of this, and a sword stuck through his head, and he's burnt by some sunlight, which they go into battle with these werewolves like moments before the sun comes up. I mean, this battle's only going on for like 20 or 30 minutes before the sunlight is like high in the sky. And at the end of this, Victor's thought dead, which of course he's not. He's put in his tomb. And then it looks like the werewolves have taken over the castle. And at this point in the history, it looks like the werewolves reign supreme. Like, when we fast forward to the original Underworld at that time period in the 2000s or whatever, the vampires are very much in control, or very much the hierarchy. But at the end of this, it's the rise of the Lycans. Like, they are top of the food chain at the end of this, and Victor and them will go into hiding. So, like, what happened between this movie and Underworld? One, to make them dominant and reign supreme once again. There's another prequel there, and you wouldn't be limited by almost anything, you know? And you could have that third tomb, which maybe they address it in these two movies. Who the hell's in there? I'm pretty sure they said it, I just don't remember. But yeah, it could be his reign, and then you can see how the vampires won back, dominance. Make it in the Wild West. Oh, hell yeah, man. Vampires and werewolves in the Wild West. How fucking badass would that be? Give me that movie. Have them be vampire gunslingers against werewolves. Fuck yeah, man. Get me that movie. All right. Anyways, adios.